friends, happy Easter. I hope you all had a wonderful day with your families. I really hope you were able to get outside to be able to do some Easter egg hunts or something fun, but how crazy that we had snow. I loved how Father Capodanno decided to share with us the thought that he had about how after Jesus died, how all the disciples and Mary were held up in their house, hiding and taking cover. And it's so similar to how we are. We're stuck in our houses, being able to stay healthy, but we are also welcoming Jesus into our hearts just as they were there. And he was able to come in even though the doors were locked and the windows were shut. So know that Jesus was there with you yesterday. So today we are going to read what happened after they put Jesus in the tomb. Now, you may know what already happened, but we want to read our story so that maybe we can learn a little bit something more. So, the story today is a joyful Sunday. It's from Matthew 27, verses 57 through 65, and chapter 65. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Saying it totally wrong. There's lots of numbers on this page. Chapter 28, verses 1 through 10. Mark chapter 15, verses 42 through 47. And chapter 16, verses 1 through 8. Luke chapter 23, verses 50 through 56. And chapter 24, 1 verse 12. And last but not least, John chapter 19, 38 through 42. And chapter 20, 1 through 10. Colonel is having a sneeze attack in the background if you hear a funny noise. All right, so one of the people who saw Jesus die on the cross was a rich man named Joseph. So not Jesus' adoptive father, Joseph, a different man. He was rich. He was from the town of Arimathea in Judea. Joseph was honest and brave. He was a temple leader. But he did not agree with the ones who had turned Jesus over to the Romans. So wow, even though the rest of the temple leaders didn't like Jesus and they decided to do those horrible things to him, this Joseph is also a leader, but he did not agree with them. He did not like what they did. He had heard Jesus' teachings and believed in what he said. Now Joseph was sad. He went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body so he could bury it. So this is the man that went and got Jesus' body to be able to take it to the tomb. Joseph took the body down from the cross and wrapped it in fine cloth. Then he put it in a tomb that had been cut out of solid rock. So this man had money and he had some power because he was a temple leader. So he was able to go to Pontius Pilate, ask for Jesus' body, and take it to the tomb. The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee were there too. So the ones that were there when Jesus died followed Joseph and went to the tomb as well. They watched Joseph place Jesus' body in the tomb and put a large stone in front of the cave opening, almost like a door. It was really heavy, not able to move very easily. Then they went to get things ready for the burial. So a burial then is where the body, in the hot climate, they have to do certain things to it, like those cloths and different perfumes and different things for Jesus' body once he died. This was Friday, and Saturday was the Sabbath. It was against the Jewish law to bury anyone on the Sabbath. So they had to wait until Sunday. So Jesus had died, and they had to get his body and wait to bury him because in the Jewish faith, the Sabbath is on Saturday, so you cannot bury anyone on a Saturday. So they had to wait till Sunday. Here they are. Here he is moving the stone in front of the tomb once Jesus was inside. On Sunday morning, Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and some other women went back to the tomb. To their amazement, the stone had been rolled away. The women went inside. Jesus' body was gone. So they went back and that huge stone was moved. So they went inside and Jesus was gone. So if you look at their faces, they're kind of shocked and surprised, right? They want to know what's going on. Suddenly, two men in shining white cloth stood beside them at the tomb. The women were afraid and fell to their knees. One of the men said, "Why are you looking in the place of the dead for someone who is alive? Jesus isn't here. He has risen from the dead." The women left the tomb. They had to tell the 11 disciples right away. So those two men were angels, and they were coming and saying, "Why are you looking for a person who is alive? You're looking in a place where a dead person would be," right? Because it was the tomb where he was buried. But they're saying, "Why would you look here? He's alive." Most of the disciples didn't believe the story, but Peter ran to the tomb. He looked inside. The only thing he saw was the fine cloth that Joseph of Arimathea had wrapped around the body of Jesus 2 days before. So this is Sunday. This is Easter. I might have mixed up the days a little bit. They buried Jesus on Friday when he died because they couldn't on Saturday, the Sabbath, and Sunday they went and he's gone. All right, next chapter, it's getting even better. Jesus is alive from Mark chapter 16 and Luke chapter 24. Two men were on their way out of the city. The men were followers of Jesus. They had believed he was the one who would save Israel. Now they were sad. So saving Israel, they believed that the disciples, like the rest of the Jews, were looking for someone to rescue them from Roman rule. Jesus had come to save Israel, but in a different way than from the Romans. He came to rescue people from their sins and help them become holy. He was not trying to take over the government of Israel. So he didn't want to be in charge of the country. He didn't want to be a president or a ruler. He wanted to help people with their sins to find God and to become more holy. So these two men are leaving town. So they were in Jerusalem, maybe for Passover, or maybe just visiting, or maybe they lived there. But they're leaving, and they're very sad because they thought Jesus was here to save us. And now he's gone. The temple leaders have taken him away, our only chance. So imagine how sad and how worried they would be that Jesus, their Savior, is now gone. On their road, they met a stranger. The stranger walked with them for a while. They talked about everything that had happened to Jesus. The stranger told them not to be sad. Everything had happened as God had planned. When the stranger had gone, the men knew that they had been talking to Jesus. So in adult Bible, it talks about how Jesus was kind of in disguise, not wearing a mask or anything, but since he has all kinds of powers, he was able to, while he was traveling with them and talking with them, they didn't know who they were talking to, because they had known what Jesus looked like. So if he hadn't disguised himself, they right away would have known Jesus is alive, he's right here, he's talking to us. But they didn't know that. He was disguised. But then when Jesus left, he went a different way. He sent that message that don't be sad, it all happened according to God's plan. He left. And when he left, that disguise was lifted. And those two men realized we were talking to Jesus. Jesus who rose from the dead and he was here. He was talking to us. He gave us advice about losing him. They hurried back to Jerusalem to tell his disciples. So they were like, oh my goodness, we are believers. We have to tell his disciples. So they went back to Jerusalem to meet with the disciples. The disciples were all together. They listened to the men's story. Could this be true? They asked one another. So Jesus hadn't even shown himself to his disciples, his best friends yet. But these two men, for whatever reason, Jesus decided to visit with them and tell them not to worry, and then they passed on the message. Here's a little pictures of them traveling and then telling the disciples. As they were talking, they heard another voice speaking to them. They looked up. Jesus was standing there beside them. The disciples were struck with fear. This must be a ghost, they thought. So Jesus is appearing to them and they're thinking, this is a ghost. They were scared. Like, what is going on? Jesus said, why are you afraid? Why do you doubt? Or question, why don't you believe? Look at my hands and my feet and see who I am. Touch me. Ghosts don't have flesh and bones as you see I have. So he told them to look at his hands and his feet because he had the holes from the nails. So it was proof. It was said, see, this is me. See, they had the holes in my hands, but I'm here. Even though I had died and I had those holes in my hand, I'm alive. I'm here. Touch me. And they would be able to touch him and know he was a real person. But those signs would have been there knowing that he had died because they had seen it too, right? The disciples were so amazed. They could not believe their eyes. Then Jesus asked for something to eat. They gave him a piece of baked fish and watched as he ate it. Why would they watch Jesus eat the fish? So it has in bold something to eat. Let's see if that gives us a clue. Again, people believed that eating was a sign that someone was alive since ghosts don't need food to survive. So it was another way of showing after he had said, touch me, look at my hands and my feet. I'm a person. So he asked to eat to show them again, I can eat. Ghosts don't eat. So they watched him because it was another sign. They were realizing this is not a ghost. This is Jesus. He has risen and he is here with us. Oh, gotta show you the picture. So he decided to show himself to his disciples and prove to them that it really was him. He was alive. He was not dead. How amazing, right? So later on, we will read about Jesus is taken to heaven. So he didn't stay for a long time. That's why we can't see him now, right? He ascended, which means he went up to heaven. He was raised and taken there. So I hope you enjoyed these amazing stories. I'm telling you, this is true. Jesus died for you and for me because of our sins, and he rose from the dead. He got up. He put clothes on. He moved the stone, and he walked out alive. He talked to those two men. He went to his disciples. He was eating. He had proof. How amazing. And he did all those things to show everyone, even the believers and the people who didn't believe him, I am the Son of God. I said these things would happen, and they did. How amazing. I hope you enjoyed these stories, and I will see you soon.